Forgiveness for our late start, but nevertheless, we're ready to begin. I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome and thank Mid Carolina High School JRTC from Newberry County School District, and they are accompanied by Major James Taylor, and they will present our colors.
Pose.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Love. Face. Forward. March.
Again, we thank Major Taylor and the Mid Carolina High School JRTC for an outstanding job. We'd like to welcome two new board members that are in our midst today that have joined us to fill positions from the 5th and the 15th Judicial Circuits. We have Dr. Tracy West representing the 5th Judicial Circuit. There she is. And we have Mr. Alan Walters representing the 15th Judicial Circuit. We thank you all for being with us today. You came at a really good day to see how things go on, but we pray that you will stay.
It only gets more fun.
Dr. West was elected to finish the remainder of, you all remember my sister, Mara Jones' term, and Mr. Walters was elected by Georgetown Legislative Delegation to finish the remainder of Mr. Strauderman's term. Mr. Walters will also continue to represent the 15th Judicial Circuit for the next 4 years. Both Dr. West and Mr. Walters will be members of the Educated Professions Committee. So thank you again for joining us and welcome. Is there any objection to approving the minutes as presented? Hearing none, the minutes are approved by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the approval of the agenda as presented? Hearing none, the agenda is...
No objection, Chair, but I just, the consent agenda, if we could move that up, we're in its proper place. That's the only thing, right after the consent items. I think the consent agenda need to move up before we do the information from the...
We need to have the consent agenda, it needs to come after the committee report.
Because after the, after the
needs to
committee
stay.
report.
Yep.
It does. It will, we always take it up then.
Oh, yeah, we'll take it right after the committee reports.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you. If there's no further objection, then the agenda is approved as presented. Visiting with us, do we have any media visiting with us this afternoon? We do have in our midst Sue Rawls from Riverside Insights. Hello, Ms. Rawls, thank you for being with us today. We will now hear from, I will remind everyone to please turn off any cell phones or electronic devices. Anyone who will be speaking before us for public comment, Please speak clearly into the microphone so that your information can be recorded properly for information and for our records. We will now hear from our State Board Chair report, and I have some information here for our board members. There's a focus on ethics, guiding professional decision-making. It's going to be hosted by Columbia College in collaboration with South Carolina Department of Education. There are two dates that you may attend in two separate locations. On Tuesday, November 19th, this will be hosted at Columbia College, Breed Leadership, room 201, 202, at Columbia College from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., if that date is available for you to attend. And then the other date will be on Wednesday, November 20th, at my alma mater, Claflin University, in Ministers Hall in Orangeburg, South Carolina, also from 9 a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. So if any board members are interested in attending a focus on ethics, please see Kathy or someone here at the State Department to provide you additional information. There's no cost for registration. There is a website that you can go into, register online, but we'll share that information with you if you are so interested at the conclusion of our business today.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
what
ma'am.
date is for Claflin?
Claflin is Wednesday, November 20th,
November. Thank you.
and Columbia College will be Tuesday on the 19th. Okay. That is it from the chair. We will now hear from our superintendent.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just returned from Atlanta just a few minutes ago. I was at the Council of Chief State Schools Officers meeting. One thing that I'll share with you, I was very proud. Yes, on Sunday afternoon, we toured Morehouse and Spelman campuses, and it reminded me how proud I am of the South Carolina son, Dr. Benjamin Mays from Greenwood. If you've ever traveled up Highway 178 from Saluda to Greenwood, you see the historical marker marking where he was born. There used to be a little shack, really, that was there. It's been moved to the town of Greenwood now, where they have a museum honoring him. But I was reminded he was the longest-serving president of Morehouse. He also was well-traveled worldwide, and he had a young student named Martin Luther King, Jr., who came to him and confided in him that he was feeling moved to begin a civil rights movement. And Dr. Mays advised him that he needed to study Gandhi's teachings of nonviolence, and it made me very, very proud. And then last night also we were entertained by a fantastic group from the Benjamin Mays High School in Atlanta. So it made me really proud of a very special person who actually spoke at my college graduation. I had a chance to meet him in 1976. He was the speaker at Lander commencement. So with that, I have no report today. You've had a long morning already, so I'll just share that with you, but I have no official report. Thank you.
Thank you. We're glad that you had safe travels. We will now hear from Ms. Hazelwood with our parliamentarian comments.
I think.
We'll try to behave. Come on.
I'm on the back row now. So I, just for the new members, but I think at least both of them had actually seen this before. The meeting is the chair's meeting. All comments and questions go to the chair. Presenters at the podium present their questions and issues to the chair, and the chair directs accordingly. I think that since we've returned to the basics, as they say, things have worked a bit more smoothly. So that's the last time I'm going to talk about it, until it's not.
It's not a problem until it is. We'll be good today. For public comment, we have, excuse me, I've just hidden my, Mr. David Carter. I remember you. Hello, Mr. Carter.
Hi.
Please limit your comments to 3 minutes.
I
Thank you,
have.
sir.
It should be very short. For the record, my name is David W. Carter. Madam Chair, members of the board, and Superintendent Spearman. Recently, I moved here from Reno, Nevada. In November 2016, I was elected to represent District 2 of the Nevada State Board of Education, which covered 11 of the 17 counties of Nevada. All but Washoe County, home to Reno and Sparks, were rural counties, including the state capital county, which was Carson City, which is a county in itself. Before resigning recently in preparation for our move to Columbia, I fought to change the direction of Nevada education and their reliance on Common Core. I failed. Recently, Nevada announced that they had improved to being rated as 48th in the nation, up from 51st. When they were 51st, obviously they were below even Washington, D.C. I attribute their rating to their dependence on Common Core standards. In 2014, Governor Nikki Haley signed legislation that required the state of Nevada, or South Carolina, to develop new standards for the 2015-16 year. South Carolina became the second state after Indiana to back away from Common Core and replace it with new standards. These standards were adopted at the March 11, 2015 board meeting. They joined other states that had never adopted Common Core, such as Massachusetts. Massachusetts ranks every year as one of the top 5 stations in the nation in education. In 2015, representatives of that Board of Education from Massachusetts were invited to a joint meeting of the Nevada State Senate and Assembly Education Committees. They proposed allowing access to Nevada to their curriculum for only the cost of any printing, but also allowing access to any materials online at no cost. The Department of Education testified they were not interested and were going to stay with Common Core standards. And that was a major reason for my running in 2016 for the board seat. I defeated the incumbent, who was a previous member of the Assembly Education Committee, who replaced the board member who had passed away the previous October. And I'll close by saying, a recent article in the Federalist indicated Common Core was fully implemented. National student test scores dropped every year, while previous test scores were on an upward trend from 1990 to 2015. The class of 2019, the first class to experience all 4 high school years under Common Core, is the worst prepared for college in 15 years. This data comes from a report from the NAEP, the National Assessment of Educational Progress. I want to thank you, the members of the board, and the staff of the Department of Education of South Carolina for adopting and implementing the new standards that you did in 2015. While math for South Carolina NAEP scores were below the national average, the gap is closing. In 2000, 59% of South Carolina students scored at or above the basic level. In 2017, that score rose to 75%. And in 2019, the score was 77%. The national scores are dropping, but South Carolina scores are rising, and you're getting closer to the national average. I want to thank you. And for the record, I have a copy of the article where I got the information on the school grades, the worst in the last 15 years, and a note about the adopting the standards to replace Common Core in 2015. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. Carter. We appreciate your comments today. We will accept them as information. If we have any questions, we will contact you. Thank you again. We'll now hear our state board items, beginning with our committee reports. Policy and legislative did not meet today, so there is no report coming from that committee. The chair now recognizes Dr. Gamble to present the Educated Professions Committee report.
Yes, Madam Chair. We had 3 items to be added to the consent agenda. The first 2 items, EPO1 and EPO2, those items were presented by Columbia International University. They want to add a program, a Bachelor's of Science in Early Childhood and Elementary Education, and they were approved. This third item, EPO3, the University of South Carolina wished to modify their educator preparation master's degree program in teaching from 51 hours to 33 hours, and that was also approved. And we had 2 items for information, and all 3 items were placed on the consent agenda. Okay, we had 2 items for information. One was the CAPE and state review of educators' preparation programs. And we have several colleges and universities in the state who will be going through those reviews this year. Newberry College, Coastal Carolina, Winthrop, USC Aiken, North Greenville University, Morris College, and Coker University will be going through their review. And the final item was Columbia College will be adding a 1-hour lab course to help candidates who were not successful on the praxis to go through a 1-hour lab course to help them achieve the score that they need in order to be successful.
Great.
And that is my report.
Thank you, Dr. Gamble. And again, her items for action were placed on the consent agenda. We'll now hear from Standards Learning and Accountability.
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Yeah,
you.
Dr. Downs, thank you.
Thank you. Our committee met this morning, and we had no action items. However, we did have an information item. And Madam Chair, if with your approval, I would like to call on Ms. Stephanie DeStazio, the Director of the Office for Personalized Learning, to present that report to the board.
Thank you. Ms. DeSazio?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
We wanted to just make sure that we provided an update to the board on some of the workings of the Office of Personalized Learning. We have designed, as some of you know, a multifaceted approach to a variety of options for professional learning so that we can meet schools and districts wherever they might be on the journey to making sure that we are creating a truly student-centered learning environment so that all of our students can graduate and achieve the profile of the South Carolina graduate. To that end, we are now working directly with 52 of our school districts. So we are working with a majority of our school districts. Our goal is by 2022 that we are working with all school districts in the state. We have introductory and mid-level supports, which have been very well received. Our inquiry labs, 7 this semester and 8 next semester, all but 1 are filled to capacity, which gives us some information that our educators value the opportunity to get into one another's classrooms and one another's schools and see the work as it is happening in the classrooms and being able to talk directly to students and teachers who are performing that work. We find that very valuable and helpful as far as networking goes. Secondly, our design of professional learning has been highlighted at a number of national events this year, including CCSSO, because we have taken a team-based approach. We have designed school and district teams where we have a building level administrator, an instructional coach, at least 3 teachers, and this year we've added a university professor and a pre-service teacher on each team so that we may better support the entire team thinking about the context of their individual school, their individual district, as they take the learning and figure out how to best contextualize that and use it in their own community. So to that end, one of the things we are seeing is again, more connections between K-12 and our university, and also thinking about our pre-service teachers as they're coming in to the profession. Additionally, we are working with schools and districts. We have a set of prototype competencies for the profile of a graduate. We are really excited about these competencies. We have 30 school teams, and the teams are as I described, who have come together this year and are beginning to look at ways to implement these prototype competencies. The competencies are unique to South Carolina. They were designed with input from over 900 stakeholders across the state, educators, community leaders, business folks who helped us to design those. And they, unlike competencies in many other places across our country, are not individual to each academic content area. We have one set of competencies which focus on the skills and characteristics that are unique to the South Carolina profile of a South Carolina graduate, and allow a student from pre-K through college to have one set of competencies and demonstrate whatever content knowledge they may need to demonstrate through the skills and characteristics. And so we are really excited to be partnering with these schools and districts who are stepping out first to help us figure out the best way to help other schools and districts as we ensure that every child in South Carolina is able to meet the profile of a graduate. So just wanted to provide that little update on what we are doing and make sure that you were fully aware.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
May I ask a question?
Oh, you have a question? Yes, sir.
Well, actually, I don't have a question. Yes, I do, Ms. DeStasio. Who was the group we met with last week at Transform SC?
Yes, one of our partners is the KnowledgeWorks Foundation.
Yes.
And they are partnering with us as we provide some of the professional learning.
Share what they shared with us relative to where South Carolina is in this whole issue of competency and personalized learning relative to the rest of the nation.
Yeah, we are very fortunate. Our office was the first in the nation to be created, the Office of Personalized Learning, focused solely on how do we help schools and districts make this paradigm shift to the way that we are teaching and learning. Unlike most other states, our office was created, as I'm sure most of you know, from existing FTEs and existing budgets, and also comes with no mandates. So we are truly uniquely positioned to be responsive to the needs of the field, to work with them and partner with them, and also to work here at the agency across offices. And so one of the things I'm sure you will hear echoes of from my colleagues as we describe other things that are happening here at the department, the work of personalized learning, the work of making sure that all of our students are able to achieve the profile of the graduate is infused across offices. And so we're very proud of the fact that we both get to advocate internally and provide some of that learning externally.
Well, I just want to thank the superintendent and thank you, Ms. DeStasio, for this work, because I think it's a significant game changer for our students in South Carolina. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may thank
ma'am.
Stephanie also. She's done a remarkable job. Lauren, is Lauren with you today? No?
No, she's out in the field doing some
She's
professional learning.
working, and it's just great leadership. Dr. Mathis serves as their deputy and really is an extension of the work that began years ago with Transform SC, with working with you and the business community to move this forward. So I'm really, really proud, and it is getting national recognition. And we're the first in the nation, and to have a full-time staff devoted to this, and we're getting lots of attention. So there'll be more good things coming. So thank you, Stephanie, for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
Anything further, Dr. Dale?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Chair now recognizes Mr. Bootson, Innovation and Finance Committee report.
We had one action item and two information items. The action item was to approve recommendations for a review panel for instructional materials for social studies, grades 3 through 5. Move to put that on the consent agenda. The two information items we had, one was the one that you just heard about personalized learning. The other one had to do with effective educators and educators as leaders. Both, I think, were of interest and pretty informative, and I think at some point we probably need to hear more about them.
Thank you, Mr. Busan. And now Chair recognizes Mr. Brennan for the ELC Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Educator Licensure Committee met this morning. We dealt with 7 cases. All of them were for unprofessional conduct. There was 1 reprimand, there was 1 revocation, and all the rest were suspension of certificates.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. The full board ELC also met. We had 2 items for action. We acted on one public reprimand, and I think they grabbed my sheet.
Dismissal.
Yes, 1 dismissal from a previous action. So those were the only 2 items that came before full board ELC. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. For information, we will hear from our nominations committee, and in accordance with the State Board Rule BBA, the chair of the State Board of Education must appoint a nominating committee at the November board meeting of no more than 3 board members to name a nominee for the State Board of Education chair-elect for the upcoming year. The nominating committee will then present its nominee to the State Board during our December board meeting. I nominated 3 or appointed 3 members of that particular committee on October 22nd. They include Dr. J.R. Green, Dr. Cynthia Downs, and Ms. Jean Pearson. Dr. Downs did agree on October 24th to chair that committee, and they will make their report, like I said, in our December 10th meeting. So thank you, board members, for functioning in that capacity for our nominating committee. They do have the items that have been placed on consent agenda. We have those before you. Is there any objection to any item that has been moved to the consent agenda? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been handed out. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will now hear, those are the items for approval for educated professions. We've gone through those. We will now hear from, State Board of Education meeting dates for 2020. I was presented with an initial initial calendar, which did have some changes that had to be made. So the new calendar for the 2020 State Board meetings has been put into place, and we'll have not much has changed. We meet on this, I will not meet. You will meet on the 2nd Tuesday of every month. You will have a break in the month of July, and you have the option to attend the State Teachers Awards, which will be the same time it was last year. There will be the SC reading, give me the proper name, the reading, thank you, still on the calendar as it was before. So board members who will be returning in 2020, your calendar is laid out, and we expect to. Now, just a point of information, we know when we meet, the staff and council does an excellent job of making sure that we get the materials that we need to prepare ourselves for the meetings prior to coming. So please, board members, continue to do your homework. New board members, you will have homework, so please take the time to read over the materials that are uploaded for your review so that we can act accordingly and do what we need to do and handle the business of the State Board. For coming before us now, we will hear regarding the South Carolina report card update. from our South Carolina Department of Ed staff, Dr. Payne.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay. So as you know, last month when we came before the board, we had just released our 2019 report cards, but we still had some data that was embargoed and was not ready to share yet. So since that time, those data have been unembargoed, and we're going to take a little deeper dive today than we did last month. Now, I want to begin by saying that we have, in our new accountability system, millions and millions of pieces of data, and we could literally talk all week in terms of how we could slice and dice and understand and debate what the data are sharing and what our assumptions about the data are. So what we've tried to do is just take a slice of that and present you some information for your consideration today. As I shared last month, this is how we have our current accountability system in South Carolina, where we have 100 points, and then based on those 100 points, we have cut scores, and then schools, not districts, are assigned ratings of excellent, good, average, below average, and unsatisfactory. Again, and you see the point distribution by these indicators. Academic achievement, again, is students' performance in ELA and math, preparing for success, science and social studies. Student progress is our value-added growth model. School quality is our engagement survey. English Learners Progress is a test given to our students who are not yet fluent in the English language to see how they're building their proficiency. And their schools are only rated against that metric if they have enough students who are working on building their proficiency. And at the high school level, we have graduation rate and college and career readiness. So we're going to dive in to talk a little bit about first our statewide assessment results, particularly in comparison from 2018 to 2019. So what are we seeing in terms of that? To assist me in this, well, first of all, our first stab at this is going to be our end-of-course assessments at the high school level. So at the high school level, we have English 1, Algebra 1, Biology, and U.S. History Constitution. Those assessments are graded, just like a typical grade, A to F. And so Brandon Loudermilk, who is one of our psychometricians in our Office of Assessment, has run a lot of calculations on these and will come and kind of talk through these. Once we finish end of course, we'll move into SC Ready, which is ELA and math, and then we'll talk about SC Pass, which is our science and social studies. Again, comparing 2018 to 2019 and show some patterns that we see.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Dr. Payne. Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll start out, I just want to draw your attention to the top first. We have the mean scale score, the percentage of A's, percentage of B's, percentage of C's, D's, and F's, just like you would see on a report card. Of course, the mean scale score is out of 100. It runs from 0 to 100. And these are all differences. So I took last year and subtracted them from this year to see what's going on. If the score drops, then we're doing worse. We see a red. If the score or percentage goes up, we're doing better. We see that copper tone. I won't call it orange. So we see, I only really analyzed our large groups, which is male and female, all students, Black or African American students, and white students, because we really see some really small numbers when we get to certain grades, and it wouldn't be fair to say, oh, we're seeing this huge shift, when in fact it's one grade being promoted to the next grade, and it's a small number of students. So overall, in Algebra 1, which is our very hard test, we're seeing very good things. We're seeing percentage of A's increase, percentage of F's decrease. It's fantastic news. In Biology 1, we're seeing some mixed scores. Males and white students tend to go down a little bit, and female and African American students are going in a very positive direction, kind of closing that gap. And feel free to interrupt me at any time if there are any questions. English 1, we had an interesting issue. We piloted English 2 this year. So these students may have been, some of these students were tested double in SC Ready grade 8 ELA and English 1. So it's always tough to say, but we're moving to English 2 coming forward, so that double testing issue will go away. And hopefully we'll get a clearer picture of how we're doing in high school English versus middle school English. But overall, of course, you see a lot of red. We have dropped considerably, with our bright spots being the percentage of African Americans who are scoring more A's. U.S. history and the Constitution, we're seeing kind of a split where more people are getting A's, but also more are getting F's, and the mean scale score is going down. But again, they're going down by 1 point out of 100, so it's seriously 1 percentage point. Moving on to SC Ready ELA, I've got it broken down by English first, so ELA first, and then we'll do math next. I'll draw your attention again to the headers where we're reversed. Thank you, you're welcome. Yay, made it easy for you. Does not meet is on the left. That's our bad category. Approaches expectations, meets expectations, exceeds expectations, and vertical scale score. We have a different scale score. These are all, you can subtract them from year to year technically. But typically you want to see fewer people in does not meet, more people in exceeds expectations, and raises in vertical scale score. And we see that we're having that same split where more students are piling up and does not meet, but also we're seeing more students in the exceeds expectations, and the vertical scale scores are going up. I have my own theories on why this has happened, but I won't venture them. In grade 4, we're looking beautifully. We see most students dropping lower in does not meet, fewer students in does not meet, a greater percentage of students by significant margins in exceeds expectations, and the vertical scale score going up quite high. Again, we're seeing a greater gain in exceeds expectations than we are in does not meet expectations, and we're seeing those gains played out in the vertical scale score in grade 5. In grade 6, we have a little bit of a mixed bag, but on the whole, we're seeing the same pattern of vertical scale scores going up, a greater percentage of change in exceeds expectation than in does not meet expectation. Yes, sir.
Back up one.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Under does not meet all students 0.6, that's 0.6%.
Change.
Up
So
or down?
it's going the wrong direction,
Okay,
and it's 0.6% change, not 0.6%
Got it.
total.
got it, okay, thank you.
Okay.
So it's much smaller than 1% total,
Yeah,
0.6%
I got it.
total. Grade 7, we see what we want to see. We're very happy with grade 7. We get the same beautiful image in grade 8 where something is going right, and we're very happy about it. Or I am.
Yes.
Moving on to SC Ready Mathematics. We see the same change. Our students are getting better. Our vertical scale scores going up on the whole. Black African Americans are suffering a little bit in grade 3 math, but not very much at all. For reference, in grade 3, the range of scale scores goes from 100 to 825. So when you see a drop of 0.7 points, it's not very big. Grade 4, we're seeing more of what we want to see. We're seeing mostly gains in vertical scale score and gains in exceeds expectations, decreases in does not meet expectations. Grade 5, we see all that copper tone. We like to see copper. Don't like to see orange. Do like to see copper. Grade 6, we did take a hit. Our exceeds expectations seem to get smaller by percentage point difference, but does not meet also got smaller by percentage point difference. So if you thought of these as two comparable grades, you're seeing a move towards the center. But overall, it's towards the center and then a little bit up because, as you see, the overall scale score is moving up slightly. Grade 7, the overall scale score is moving down, and we're seeing pretty much the opposite of what we're seeing in grade 7 ELA, which is curious. Grade 8, we seem to recover very well and move on from there. SC Pass, that's our science and social studies. Again, this analysis won't be possible quite next year because SC Pass science won't be offered in the 8th grade. But this year, I'll alternate between science, social studies, science, social studies, science, social studies, science. So there's science 4, and you'll need to keep a good eye on the top because these do change from year to year. We have more kids going in the does not meet expectations category, but we also have more percentage students in the exceeds expectations category. Again, we see that push outwards towards the extremes, but with an overall improvement in scale score. Here is social studies, drawing your attention to the top again. We have not met, met, and exemplary, and the scale score. Overall, our exemplary is going down by percentage a little bit, but our scale scores are improving. And our not met is going down, which is quite good. We're back to science. We see that our exceeds expectations is going down a little bit. Not much change and does not meet expectations, and a very small drop in science scale score. Back to social studies, not met, met, and exemplary. We're seeing more students in not met, which is kind of problematic. Very few but serious changes in exemplary and an overall drop in the scale score. And to grade 8 science, we see more students in does not meet expectations or a greater percentage relative to last year, and a greater percentage relative to last year and exceeds expectations with an overall increase in scale score. And that's what I have. If you have any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Boutson?
I'm not sure that I've taken in everything that you said up there, but I'm struck by how many small numbers there are in either direction. There's some places where there's some larger numbers, but most of them are small numbers.
Right.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go, no, you.
Does that mean that essentially the trend line is flat? We're not getting a lot better, but we're not getting a lot worse. We're kind of...
So I would say essentially, if you were to draw that trend line,
Yeah.
it would be pretty flat.
Okay.
The only reason it's highlighted is because we're talking about populations, and these are, by definition, meaningful differences. So while they are statistically quite significant, they may not be practically significant. These are presented as information,
Okay.
and interpretation is up to policy.
Thank you so much. Any further questions? Yes, there were. Oh, yes, Mr.
I'd like to ask
Komorowski.
a question. Thank you. First, thank you for your hard work and excellent presentation. This is my first year on the board. When did the change in, because I noticed the first ones you showed were about grades, letter grades. When did the change take place when they lowered what it meant to get each grade? And has there been any studies done to show how many people get A's now and F's now as compared to when there were higher standards?
So really what happened was the uniform grading policy changed, and I believe that was in 2016, correct me if I'm wrong. That was before I got here too, so I'm trying to guess back.
Is there any way to show how many A's or F's increased or decreased?
Yes, sir, we did. The psychometrician before me did a study and showed precisely how many would change. But the bigger issue is that the location and the score didn't change. So you had different people getting different grades on their report card grades. But as far as the cut scores, because we measure things on what's called a theta metric or an underlying latent trait model, that didn't move. So essentially you had to know the same amount of stuff to get the same grade. But when it got moved over and the grade policy changed, what wound up happening was because the letter grade or the scale score grade changed from a B to an A, you saw those report card grades change.
Would it be possible to get that?
Yes, sir. I'd be glad
Thank you
to
very
share that
much.
with you.
Anything further? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Payne will also be
Yep.
fill in for
We
Ms.
have
Dix?
I'm sorry, we have a few more slides
Got
if
one
we
more?
want to
Oh, I'm
go
sorry,
through.
I'm sorry.
We said we we're going to take a little deeper dive. I just wanted to take a moment, and I'll go through these fairly quickly. What are we doing about, so we see these change, and in some instances, it's kind of moving out to either end of the grading. And so this is just a little bit of a snapshot about what the department is doing to support school districts and schools around South Carolina. Of course, the work through Dr. Dixon's office in supporting our schools identified as CSI or needing comprehensive support or targeted support where there's one or more subgroups that are underperforming. Dr. Mathis and Dr. Moore are leading up our MTSS framework with a particular focus on core instruction. Dr. Mathis and his folks are also leading the Palmetto Literacy Project, which I'll touch on in a minute. Really looking at our Title I schools to make sure that they're using those Title I funds to supplement and address issues related to poverty. The work that Mr. Stasio is doing in the Office of Personalized Learning, our professional development on standards and assessments, and then last, looking at targeting particular groups, so our special ed folks really targeting how we can better support students with disabilities in their performance on statewide assessments. NAEP. I'll turn to NAEP just for a couple of words on that. NAEP is the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It started in the 1970s, and those results were released on, I believe, interestingly enough, Halloween. NAEP is a national assessment, if you will, to generally take a pulse on how well states are doing and how well students are doing. It's offered required in grades 4th, 8th, and 12th. It's done every 2 years. Our last time we administered it was 2017. Certain schools, certain students are selected, so it's not everybody takes it. It's supposed to be a sample that would be statistically representative of the state. One of the things that I want to underline is that all of these tests have achievement level descriptors. And Brandon talked about exceeds expectation or meets expectation or does not meet. NAEP uses basic, proficient, and advanced as theirs, and then if you don't meet the cut score for basic, then you would be below basic. But what is very important to underline here is that these terms don't always mean the same thing. So proficiency on NAEP does not necessarily mean meets expectation on our SC Ready assessments. Proficiency does not mean the student is not on, proficiency doesn't mean grade level readiness. So to say a student can't read because they're not proficient on NAEP really is just misconstruing the definition. So basic basically means in NAEP description is a partial mastery of prerequisite knowledge and skills that are fundamental for students' performance. Proficient means is solid academic performance, and advanced indicates, quote, signifies superior performance. And so there's an interesting article coming out that looks at NAEP and would say, well, what would NAEP be in other countries? In places like Japan and Finland, it would be about what America is scoring in terms of NAEP results. So I just underline and underscore that when we talk about proficiency, we're really talking about a level of rigor that's up there. So how did we do? Now, and that's not to underscore the importance of NAEP or what we can glean from it, but the best thing to do is when you're comparing NAEP, compare NAEP to NAEP as we think and talk about it. So again, with all of these, they have cut scores. So for example, math, grade 4, the cut score was set at 208, proficient at 238, and advanced at 268. And at any level, basic or above, students should possess or do possess some academic skills. And we have this link that we can, when we send this PowerPoint, that you can access to read more about it. So what you see in this is the average scores in grade 4 for math on the, it's hard to get my left and right, particularly when I'm looking at it backwards. On this side, if you're facing me, the NAEP in math and in reading. But what you can see is that we continue to slightly underperform other states across the country in terms of that. We do outperform some other states. You see in the red, that's the national average of NAEP scores. And you can see South Carolina is sitting kind of between that 215 and 220 mark. And then we have a couple of states, Massachusetts, and some others that are on up there. So that's what it looks like at grade 8 in terms of where we rank up compared to other states, or grade 4. This is grade 8, kind of similar in terms of our performance on NAEP in relation to other states across the nation. So let's look at it in terms of some percentages. So what you see here is the grade, so grade 4 and 8. You see whether or not it's South Carolina or the nation. You see the last year, which was 2017, and you see this year. Then you see the percent of students below basic, the percent of students at or above, so it would be basic, proficient, and advanced. Then just the proficiency that are at or above proficient, and then the percentage of students who are at advanced. So for example, in South Carolina in 2017 for math, 32% of our students were at or above proficient. That jumped to 36% in 2019, which did denote a statistical significance. So in other words, not just variability in population, but when they crunched the numbers, it actually meant something. You can see on a national level at grade 8, the percent below basic at the national level went from 31 to 32. So what you see in this is, in general, the nation's kind of flat, but there are some drops. South Carolina is kind of flat or maybe picking up a couple of points, and in a few instances, it's significant. With respect to reading, you see that South Carolina, in terms of the percentage of our kids that were at or above basic, was 59% in 2017. It jumped to 61% in 2019. And the nation was at 67 and dropped to 65% of the students that were at or above basic. And you can see that as a statistical significance for those drops at the national level. In terms of, so those are just the different variables. So in essence, we're kind of flatline, some growth, but again, some significance as well in terms of what the nation is doing overall. So what are we doing to support districts in our NAEP? Well, the first thing that we're doing, Dr. Mathis and my division are collaborating together to compare NAEP objectives. That's what they call their standards. They're all posted online to look to see if our 4th grade ELA and math standards align to the 4th grade NAEP standards. So in other words, if we look at the NAEP objectives or their standards, and it's measured on their test, but we don't touch it in our standards until 5th or 6th grade, then it's no wonder our students are underperforming on that. So we're really looking at that crosswalk to make those comparisons. I will say for Superintendent Spearman, I sat on a policy board with the National Assessment Governing Board and the Council of Chief State School Officer on NAEP. And so part of what they have been doing, looking at 2025 is when the NAEP will be releasing their new objectives, is they've actually been looking at state standards and identifying and cutting some objectives out because those objectives were on their assessed grades, but they found out were in higher grades for those states. So they've been taking those out. We're looking at how we can support our school districts in terms of professional development related to standards and really getting into rigor and depth of knowledge, or how hard are some of these test items or what level of that. We're looking and having conversations with the National Assessment Governing Board about, well, can you share a little bit more with what are we missing out on? Are there particular objectives that we're not doing well? Is it a particular depth of knowledge that our kids are missing on? Because that's really important to help us understand what can we do as a better job. And again, last but certainly least of all, is how we can really improve and support teachers building their toolbox to focus on improving core instruction. Accountability and poverty, I want to spend just a minute on that. Let me get myself caught up here. So oftentimes you'll hear things about correlations, and really what a correlation is when something that has correlation is when one increases, the other one increases too. Or when one thing goes up, another thing can go down or up, but it's just really a relationship between two variables. There's some assumptions, they should have some connection with each other. But correlations run from -1 to +1, and closer you get to 0 basically means there's not much of a correlation at all between the two items. And so we tend to evaluate correlational coefficients as high, and that's when that correlation is 0.7 to 1. That could be positive or negative. Moderate, 0.3 to 0.69, or low, 0 to 0.29. The higher the correlation or the higher the value is suggestive of there's a connection between the two variables that you are looking at. So each of you have a handout. It was some analysis undertaken by the Education Oversight Committee staff where they ran analyses of poverty related to the overall and then each of our accountability indicators. And so what I want to do is share that with you. What you see on this slide, the values that are in red bold font are high correlation. Those that are in black font are moderate correlations, and those in green basically means there's no correlation at all. So what this is looking at is a breakdown of how poverty is related to the overall rating and then the ratings for each of these main indicators in our accountability system. What this suggests is as poverty goes up, so your poverty rate goes up, what does that do, or what relationship does that have with your overall rating? All right, so let's look at the overall rating So there is a 0.48 correlation with our elementary schools. So kind of a moderate correlation. The poorer they are, the less, you see it's a negative, the less their overall rating is. So they're moving down from excellent to unsatisfactory. At the high school level, there's a negative 0.72. What that means is as the poorer the high school, the more likely their overall rating is going to be lower. So there's an association between those that is strong. Look at achievement. Again, this is a student's performance on our ELA and math results. 0.81. That's a strong correlation between poverty, and because it's a negative correlation, and dropping overall ratings. 0.86, or negative 0.86 and negative 0.83. Now, what's really important to underscore here, too, is this is based on our accountability. And again, as I've shared with you before, the way that you get the points in our current accountability system for ELA and math, and it's true for science and social studies, is a best score possible. So going back to those achievement level descriptors we talked about, exceeds expectation, you get 3 points. Meets expectation, you get 2 points. Approaches expectation, 1 point, and does not meet 0 points. So in order to get all of the points, every student and every grade and every subject in your school has to exceed expectation. There's a little bit. So I share that to say, take a look at these correlations between poverty and the individual indicators. Preparing for success also, again, that's science and social studies. You see what that correlation is. You see growth, doesn't really have that, and that's partially because our revised growth model takes that into consideration, and we designed it to account for to compare schools with similar other schools. Student engagement, really no correlation at the elementary, moderate at the middle and high, and then you can see some moderate with CCR and graduation rates at the high school. Now, one of the things where does this get into is, does it create do we have a system? So you could say, is it truly because of the unique needs of our communities in poverty and how much they need support? Or is it a system kind of level issue? And that's part of some conversations that we need to have.
Mr.
Yes.
Boottown?
I was expecting you to give the standard caution here. The correlation is not causation.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that there are a variety of possible explanations for the correlation.
Absolutely. And I appreciate, I thank you for saying that, because this doesn't mean that just because you were poor means you were not going to get a good rating. It could mean a whole lot of variables that we could spend days upon days discussing, but suffice it to say, there is some relationship between the two. Is it a system issue, or, we could be debating that for a long time. But I did want to share this with you because this is the EOC is going to be sharing this or the EOC staff will be sharing this, and Ms. Knight gave us permission to bring that before you as information as well.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Yeah, a couple
Dr.
points.
Gray.
First of all, I want to, talk about NAEP for a second. Very often people ask, how do schools respond to NAEP data? And I guess in the education circles, we kind of call it autopsy data, because there's not a whole lot you can do with it. I've always been a little bothered by the fact that NAEP assessments are administered to less than 2% of the population. And I've spoken to Superintendent Spearman about that before, because, how do you determine what 2% of the population represents a good sample? Just imagine having a class of 100 kids and say, I'm going to give it to 2 kids, and that's going to represent how well the class has been taught. So I'm not advocating that anyone test more kids, but less than 2%. It's just hard for me to draw those kinds of conclusions. And so the larger the variance, particularly with a factor like poverty, the larger the variance exists in a particular state, the greater the likelihood that if you only test in 2%, that you may choose someone who has those kinds of issues. Okay, and so I think that's important for us to know when we talk about NAEP. The other thing I want to say about the regression analysis, I appreciate you doing that, because I think the department can learn a lot about what schools are doing an effective job of really growing students. Very often we talk about who's above the average or below the state average, but if you're below the state average in terms of students in poverty and you're above the state average in terms of achievement, you should be above the state average. That didn't represent that you were doing a better job. I think what tells a story is when you can look at a regression analysis and look at someone who has significant poverty, yet are outperforming their predicted performance. Yeah. And so we look at that regression line and you say, well, this school may be above the state average, but they are truly outperforming where we predicted that they would based on their poverty. I think those are the schools that we need to go and say they are really getting it done, as opposed to this kind of artificial, well, the school is above the state average, or this district is above the state average. Well, you should be above the state average. And if you look at this regression analysis, if you had schools on here, probably what you'd see is some of the schools that you think were the high flyers are going to be below the line. Some of the schools that you think aren't necessarily the high flyers are going to be above the line. And what that means is the schools that are above the line are actually doing a better job of growing students based on their population than schools that are below the line. And so I appreciate the State Department at least outlining that. I think there's a lot to be learned and gained from really evaluating what those schools are doing who have these challenging populations that are really outperforming the predicted scores.
That's all, Mr. Kabrowski.
Thank you. Learned some things from listening. And I always ask, so when people ask me, what is the definition of poverty that's used in this comparison?
I think this one in here, correct me if I'm wrong, Betsy, we used the PIP. That's what we're using to define poverty in our accountability system.
State definition of poverty.
Yep, which means there's about 4 or 5 different categories. So if the student's TANF, Medicaid eligible, SNAP.
Foster, homeless, minor.
Yep. So if a student meets any one of those, then we consider them to be a child in poverty. Just very briefly, you see in terms of, and this is some slides that Dr. Mathis has shared, you just see in terms of our 721,000 or so is reported by the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs, 446,000 of our children live in poverty. That's 61%. Dr. Green, just back on to yours for a minute in terms of NAEP. We had 4,800 kids in 4th grade and 4,700 kids in 4,800 in 4th grade and 4,700 in 8th grade. That was who took NAEP in South Carolina. But you see here in terms of what that is. So with respect to our Palmetto Literacy Project, last year we identified 176 schools for which they had a third or more of their students in that does not meet. And you can see that when we looked at our 19 results, 34 schools improved that now have less than a third. 55 schools improved, but they still have a third or more, so they didn't get out of that. 81 schools did not improve, and 89 more schools were added to that because they had 1/3 or more of theirs. Briefly, and I'll just try to go through this very quickly. We did get the ACT data out at the state level. We saw a marginal 0.6, even though it is statistically significant, on our average composite score on the ACT. It's 18.6. It was 18 in 2018, and it was a little higher than that. There are some states that are looking at the 2018 results and asking some questions. But one of the things I want to call your attention to is when students take the ACT, they are asked whether or not they've completed required coursework. ACT prescribes that students should have 3 units of English, English 1 or higher, 3 units of math at Algebra 2 or higher, biology, physics, and 2 units in social studies. So they say, have you got it? Yes? No. So you can see, for those who said, yes, that I've completed this coursework, their average composite score on ACT was 19.7, compared to 17.1% who said that they had not completed the required coursework. When we look at SAT, but what we also saw is we saw a significant drop, 51,000 in 18 compared to 33,000 in 19, because we're moving out of that cohort where ACT was required. With SAT, we saw an increase, and you can see our score went down, our average score went from 1035 to 1021, and there is kind of an association with that. But one of the things to point out there, NAEP, SAT doesn't say, here's the courses you need to take, but they do say that you should be in your spring semester of your junior year. And this is a college readiness assessment. So there are some assumptions we could make about the types of things that students should be able to do and have completed. But of those, you see that over 16,000 of our students took the SAT during the school day. And for those students, their average SAT score was 980. Now, one of the things to underline and underscore and bold, none of these tests measure motivation. So, in other words, children who take it on Saturday, they're spending a Saturday, right? They're not doing whatever they're doing, would normally do. So there is some difference. So to that end, we're working on, and I'll just skip these, but to these end, we're working on providing more clarifying documentation to say we want students to be successful when they take SAT and ACT. So please make sure you're having conversations through that individual graduation plan and that school counselor to talk about it, and make sure that this is appropriate for a student to complete, and then reimbursing districts.
Mr. Bootson?
Everybody used to have to take the ACT or the SAT?
So for a while, rewind several years ago, and the ACT was our high school assessment. Then the General Assembly, and South Carolina is not unique in this, and then the General Assembly said you have to take either ACT or SAT, and the Ready to Work assessment too. That then was changed again, so now for SAT and ACT, it is an option.
So what percentage didn't take either SAT or ACT?
I'll have to look that up. I would say probably in the neighborhood, just if I had to ballpark, about 30%, but we had large numbers, you can see, going back. So 64% of our 2009 graduating class took the SAT.
When you look that up, would you also look at the demographic profile of that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
may. Mr. Bootson, thank you. That, we had a long and very good conversation with the district superintendents this past last Thursday, because the law has changed, and we learned from the conversation, not everybody understood the change, and I don't think we've done a really good job of communicating this down to parents and to students. So we are scheduling a conference call with all the high school principals and guidance counselors in the state in the next week or so, because it's about that time where folks are signing up. But the law has changed now that students have a choice in the 11th grade. They can, and the state pays for your test choice of either ACT, SAT, or you can choose not to take it at all, or you may delay taking it if funds are available, and we will pay for it then in the 12th grade. We talked with superintendents. Now, everyone does have to, every 100% take the career readiness test, which was Work Keys, is now WINS. Every student takes that. And we want to make it clear, we want students to be successful. We're not trying to deny the right to take the test to anyone, but that people understand. If you're going to a technical college, in South Carolina, they do not require ACT or SAT. You know, the test is not mandatory, and I think a lot of families don't understand that. So we have, Dr. Payne and his folks have worked on with the superintendent's input, a more explicit, very streamlined letter that we send home. We're sending it out to districts, and they can choose to send our template or their own, but we're trying to communicate that better. You know, I just, as I said, I just left meeting with all my colleagues across the country. And this is a huge piece of conversation. I thought I was kind of the only one saying this, but more and more states are really looking at, should all students have to take a college entrance exam? How do we communicate that? There's a lot of discussion, as John said, about NAEP. JR, we've talked about it. I found out we're not the only ones talking about it, saying the 2%. Is NAEP trying to drive a national curriculum through its assessment? Because the testing assessment that they use, particularly in math, is currently not really aligned to what most states teach in fourth grade. Mm-hmm. And John's sitting on that panel for us, representing us. So there's some, you know, I don't want to excuse, we want to do better. We've got to do better. But there are some reasons that things that we are sometimes testing students on things that they haven't been taught. Mm-hmm. Now, if we're guilty of that on our own standards, we got to do a better job of standard alignment with our assessment and professional development for the teachers. But some of our national assessments, it's the same issue going on there, that some of the things that are on their test, most states in this country are not teaching it, particularly at fourth. It's a big disparity between fourth grade, fifth and sixth grade, what is taught in math. So all of that is really being looked at, and a lot of discussion going on across the country. We had a lengthy meeting last night with the leadership of ACT, and pretty intense conversation about are there issues there for students in poverty that need to be addressed on the test. So you'll be hearing more about that.
Yep. I have provided just a few resources, and this will be, of course, these are already hyperlinked. The first is our screportcards.com. You can look, compare districts, you can download data and slice and dice it. We also have our assessment data by the particular assessment and by year. Just a note there, our assessment data is not necessarily our accountability assessment data. Assessment data is whoever took the test, regardless if they'd been in the school all their lives or if they'd been in the school a week. The accountability data, we really look just at those students who have been enrolled that school year to hold them accountable. We also have a link after we finish up with our test administration in the fall, we take a look at our test and we look at how particular groups of students and which standards are performing well or not as well, depths of knowledge, and we generate reports, and we're going to do a better job of marketing those, and you can see that's the third link, and then we also have some additional link there. So, Madam Chair, with that concludes our update on the report card.
Thank you.
Yes, I've got to make it accessible, but it will. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. Now you will be updating us on Florence County, Allendale County, and Williamsburg County.
Dr. Dixon sends her regrets. She's out in the field today, so I'm, as usual, a poor substitution for her expertise, but I will endeavor to do my best. So with respect to Allendale County Schools, I hope you all saw on our Facebook page, we had a nice article about Allendale County Schools that we highlighted on our Department of Education website. But October 29th, the district held a community meeting in conjunction with their community-wide fall festival. They had over 400 parents, students, and community members, business department, and local government officials that came to it. On October 1st, Waterford Upstart did some training for parents of their 4K students, and it really focused on how to use computers via the partnership. These parents received training on how to support their children in accessing computer features and cyber safety. The Allendale Fairfax Middle School students observed Nuclear Science Week by attending University of South Carolina Salkehatchie STEM Day. And 3 of their sophomores at the high school attended the South Carolina Legislative Black Caucus Youth Conference, where they met with legislators and staffers and saw how Bill goes from being a bill to a law. Allendale Elementary was awarded 3 grants from Tri-County Community Foundation, and they will support the school's efforts in literacy, family fitness, and Girls on the Run. And because of the district's partnership with SRP Federal Credit Union, Allendale County Schools got $7,066.10 from ACS Affinity Debt Card transaction. They've started a Saturday school, which has been implemented for all K-12 students, and during each session, students are able to work to close those gaps. And last but least of all, Allendale is now offering telehealth services to all of their students, K through 12th, as a result of its partnership with MUSC and South Carolina Telehealth Alliance. So having that access in a rural to psychiatrists and other providers is just really quite something. With respect to Florence School District 4, they had a community meeting on October the 21st in the Media Center, and they had parents and community members there. Students at Johnsonville Middle School and Timmonsville High School completed their benchmark assessments in ELA, math, social studies, and science, and teachers are already looking at those data to assess the student mastery of learning during the first 9 weeks. They had teacher-parent conferences on the 29th, and their teachers and staff participated with Florence 1's Professional Development Day on October 28th. Timmonsville High School held College Application Day on October 17th. Seniors had the opportunity to complete an application for one or more colleges with support from the school staff. Through the district's partnership with Florence Darlington Tech and Honda at the conclusion of the second semester, 6 students will complete the welding program and go on to be employed by Honda Corporation. 5 students will be enrolling in the forklift program, and several students will be participating in the HVAC program through the district's partnership with the Continuum, a CTE shared program that's shared by all the Florence school districts. And last, Williamsburg County Schools. C.E. Murray High School was the recipient of a 2019 South Carolina Aeronautics Commission grant in the amount of $76,800. This is the largest grant awarded to any district in South Carolina by the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission, and it will support their implementation of Project Lead the Way, aerospace course for high school students in Williamsburg County, and expand their present CTE offerings, and it will begin in their second semester. They had a family engagement information sharing session for pre-K to students who are participating in Waterford Upstart, and distributed computers to all families of 4K CERDEP students. Due to the growing waiting list of these preschool students, they do have the need to open an additional 4K CERDEP classroom, and they're in the process of recruiting additional early childhood education teacher and assistant for next school year. The month of October, their PD focused on the multi-tiered system of supports framework that Dr. Mathis and Dr. Moore are working on, really focused on ensuring or understanding the importance of that Tier 1 core instruction, and that will continue to be a professional development. They're participating in the Sarah Virtual Job Fair on November 21st, and we'll look to continue recruiting employees for vacancies. On the 29th of October, members of the local Rotary Club partnered with the school district to continue its ongoing Happy Feet initiative. Students from various schools within the district received new shoes of their choice. And that concludes Dr. Dixon's reports for our 3 school districts. Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Good to hear the good news. Was that number the welding number? The students who completed the
welding
course? It was 6. Okay, thank you so much.
Yep.
Anything else for Dr. Pay? Thank you so much. As far as other business for this board, please remind everyone to please fill out your vouchers before leaving and return them to Noel. If there's nothing else to come before this board, we do stand adjourned. You all be safe getting home.